really fortunate. We have great access to our elected officials. And from the House of Representatives, we have Dusty Johnson here to speak. So thank you so much.
Yeah. This is social class? Is that what I heard, right?
Social problems.
Social problems. Well, I have a lot of social problems. Good for your class. So yeah, Dusty Johnson. You guys probably know the basics, but how many members in the U.S. Senate? Maybe nobody knows. We don't know how many people are in the U.S. Senate. Any guesses? Got 50 states. Every state gets 2. Now we turn it into a math problem. 100 people in the U.S. Senate. So our 2, South Dakota sends who to Washington for us in the Senate? You can name one.
The majority.
What's that?
Is it the majority?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, one of the guys who's from South Dakota is the number 2 guy in the Senate. So yeah, yeah, John Thune. That's the guy we're talking about. He's got a position of some influence for sure. Anybody know the other gentleman that South Dakota sends to the Senate? First name Mike. Mike Rounds. So those are 2 senators. So I'm on the other chamber. That's the Senate. Over in the House, you don't get 100 members. You get 435 members in the House. And that's based on population. South Dakota obviously not a very populated state. And so we just get 1 member out of 435, and that's me. I'm kind of a new baby congressman. I just got elected in November. I got sworn in January. And it's been, frankly, a more rewarding experience than I expected. We've got Danica Almer back there. Danica is one of our key staff members out of our Rapid City office. And we don't have a huge team. The average House budget is about 1/3 of the Senate budget, Senate office budget, which sort of makes sense in California where they have 53 members. You wouldn't expect that those 53 members would all have the same budgets as their 2 United States senators. The average House district takes care of about 700,000 citizens. Ours is a big district from that perspective. We don't have enough to have 2 members of the U.S. House, but we've got a lot more than 700,000. We're closer to 900,000. So this is one of the largest in population House districts. There aren't many states that only have 1 member, but Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, they're 4 of the 6. So lots of hot button issues. I enjoy it. About half the time I'm in DC and about half the time I'm back home. My wife and I live in Mitchell, and we have 3 sons, 2 of them in middle school and 1 in elementary school. So with that, I can blather on forever, but I think it's probably be a little more interesting if you guys ask questions about anything you want, and then we'll kind of have a discussion. Yes, ma'am?
What social problems have you fought for and fought against?
Yeah, sure. Well,
for like being a part of?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up from a family of very modest means. You know, sometimes I describe this as working class, but that's kind of a euphemism for poor, at least the way that I use it. So I think the persistent poverty issues in this country, particularly related to those, we just have a large and growing segment of the population that is disengaged. They can work, but they don't. So when you look, and this is not exclusively a male problem, but it is far more of a male problem than it is a female problem. Workforce participation among women has gone up almost in an unyielding manner in the last 40 or 50 years. That the workforce participation rate for men has gone down for 40 some years. So why? I mean, there would really not be any clear reason. Some people say, well, folks have health problems. Well, there would have been more health problems in 1950, right? We wouldn't have been anywhere near the quality of medical care we did in 1950. So why are so many fewer men working? And what kind of serious problems for a society does that have? If you look between prime working age, that's I think defined as 24 to 54, there are 7 million American men who can work but don't. If you combine video game time and TV time, they watch 13 hours of TV a day. And so I am really interested in why that is and what can we better design and deploy our welfare systems so that we hold these folks accountable. Because you want to talk about social problems, you know, not only is it a drag on the economy, not only it would be a drag certainly on dependents who maybe are counting on them. Maybe they have children that they should be making child support payments for, that live with them. They, after a year of not working, their mental health declines precipitously. Right? We all know we're supposed to have purpose in life. And when you're watching 13 hours of TV a day, that purpose can be harder to find. And so I think it's a serious human dignity problem. So I have been fascinated with that for a long time. And I don't, it is hard in a political environment. I mean, I think I know what the answers are. I know what I would do, but it can be hard to make those changes when a certain number of people obviously have a different worldview.
Are there any issues that you're really against that you would rather have like an alternative happen versus what actually did happen?
Yeah, I mean, only being around for 8 months, it's been a little different insofar as I'm in the minority in the House. Now, in the Senate, it's a very collaborative body. There are 100 U.S. senators, as we talked about. You need 60 of them to agree on anything for it to go. So that requires a supermajority, which means the Democrats and Republicans almost always have to work together, because not one party has more than 60 members usually. In the House, it's majority rules. So the Speaker of the House is Nancy Pelosi. She and I are from different parties. She needs to get to 218 votes. She doesn't need me to get to 218. She's never asked me for my vote. She doesn't solicit a lot of feedback. It's not that she's got anything against me. It's just that's how the House functions. And so I end up voting no on the high-profile stuff a lot. Now, there are bills every week that pass with lots of Democrat and lots of Republican votes. Those are important bills, but they're not as sexy. When it comes to the really big, headline-grabbing, sexy stuff, those are bills that are not compromise products at all. And so for somebody who has a very different worldview than Speaker Pelosi, I'm often put in a position of voting no. Now, the reason I tell you that is if you ask, gosh, are there things that you wish could have been done differently? The answer for me is, yeah, kind of everything with regard to the high-profile issues.
Is that because they're so controversial, or is that just because like you happen to lean towards the minority side of majority of the time?
Yeah, I think it is because the Speaker and I just have very, very different worldviews. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that 240 Democrats have a different way of looking at the world than the 197 Republicans that I'm a part of. And so normally, right, if you're going to run a church, or you're going to run a marriage, or you're going to run a nonprofit, or you're going to run a university or a student group, you kind of come to the table and you govern by consensus, right? You're not going to get to unanimity, right? I mean, Charlie's always an idiot, so you don't listen to Charlie. I'm joking, of course. I'm sure Charlie's very nice. But you get to consensus, right? If there are 10 of us in this student group, we're going to get at least 7 or so that are comfortable with where we're going. That's not how the House works. And so it is just, there are always bills that are just drastically different than how I would do them. I'll give you one specific example. So we had the 2018 Farm Bill. Now the Farm Bill sort of sets the framework for agricultural policy in this country. But it even more than that, sets a big chunk of welfare policy in this country. There are not very many rural members of Congress. Out of 435, there are only about 40, give or take, who represent mostly rural districts. Okay? And we don't even know how much longer South Dakota will be in that category. I mean, most South Dakotans don't live in the Sioux Falls Metro or the Rapid City Metro, but it gets closer to 50% every year, right? So, but there are not that many rural-facing members. So if you want to get, and not that many ag state members in the House. So if you want to get ag policy placed in, you need to kind of buy the votes of the Democrats. Not buy them in a strict sense, but you need to try to get a critical mass to get to 218 votes. So for a long time, food stamps, or SNAP, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, have been a part of the Farm Bill. So when you hear the Farm Bill, you probably think farmers. 80% of the funding of the Farm Bill is food stamps. And I think that able-bodied people without dependents at home who are on food stamps should work, or go to school, or be in a training program. Given my rough scrabble upbringing, I feel strongly that people who can work should work. So I'm not talking about disabled folks, and I'm not talking about people with a lot of kids at home, or just any dependents, right? But I think, I'm a very big supporter of the idea that there should be a work or education requirement 20 hours a week for able-bodied folks, non-seniors, without dependents at home, if they're going to be on food stamps. Republicans aren't in control of the House, so that, my worldview, my value on that hasn't been integrated in any of the welfare reform things we've done. Yes, ma'am?
What's like the biggest thing that you have accomplished then and like have been able to get
Yeah.
road taken.
So normally I kind of wander around. Is it super problematic for you guys if I'm bebopping around with that thing? Okay, gotcha. Because I normally want to kind of get close and like build a rapport with somebody. So, but if that's going to ruin your day, I won't move too much. So, well, we have 5 million beef and dairy cattle in this state, and in very wet conditions. That's been good for hay country, but it's been really bad for crop country. And there was probably is going to be 20 or 25% less corn grown in this country. That's normally what we put in the bellies of cattle. So, and a lot of South Dakotans and frankly, people across the country were saying, well, what are we going to feed these animals? Now, if you are a farmer, you pay for an insurance policy, crop insurance, and if it's too wet, you can't get into a field. Or let's say a hailstorm comes and knocks down your whole crop, right? But in this instance, it's too wet. You can't go out and plant a crop. Then you can declare, make a claim on your insurance policy. Hey, I can't get in, I can't plant corn, so that insurance policy would pay you 55% of what you otherwise would have gotten. Like most insurance policies, it doesn't make you whole, but it can get you a little bit further down the way. You are allowed to, on those acres that you declare prevent plant, or that your net can't get in your corn or beans or whatever, you can later, once it dries up, you can go in and you can put in a cover crop. Now, a cover crop is just good stewardship. If you don't plant a cover crop, then this would be something like radishes or some sort of a forage sorghum or a barley, not a big cash crop, but something that will A, hold the soil in place, so it knocks down erosion. Number 2, suppresses weeds. You just have a big open field, the weeds will go bonkers. If you plant a crop, then the weeds will be down. Water quality, soil quality. I mean, these plants are incredible being able to clean up, add nutrient material to the soil, and also clean up runoff before it gets down to a deeper level. So these cover crops pay huge dividends for all of humanity. And after November 1st, in any given year, you can also use that cover crop. Now that we've received these other benefits from them, you can use that cover crop in most years to turn your cattle loose in the field and they can eat it. But we didn't have enough feed in this state or in this country for cattle. So what are we going to do? We can't wait till November 1st. We get millions of cattle that won't be as healthy as they should be. So we worked really hard. Broad-based, bipartisan, 19 national ag groups involved, and we were, frankly, the primary mover in getting that for an emergency year. That November 1st date moved to September 1st. Now, that's probably a longer answer than you wanted, but I think it's very illustrative of the type of work that happens in DC. Nobody in CNN or Fox News mentioned a word about it. It didn't make the front page of the Wall Street Journal. You never heard about it. The only thing you heard about was the fighting and the anger and the rancor in Washington, D.C. And I try not to participate in that. I just think when a certain number of people, not many of them, but when a certain number of the House and the Senate, just all they want to do is fight, underneath that surface, there are those of us who are busting our butts, trying to make America a little bit better place, trying to save the livelihood of farmers and ranchers in this country. And that was a big deal. And I don't know if it would have gotten done without our team involved. Yes, ma'am.
So what are you hoping to accomplish?
What's that?
What are you hoping to accomplish?
Sure. Well, one of probably our biggest legislative priority between now and the end of the year deals with trade. So I'm a big believer in a willing buyer and a willing seller. Right? I mean, just at an instinctive level, we should understand that we should have only limited government intervention, right? I mean, you've got something you want to sell, and she's got something she wants to buy. That's an exercise of freedom and liberty, and you're both better off. This is not a zero-sum game. This is you're both better off when you exchange those goods. And the same is true in an international trade environment. NAFTA is the North American Free Trade Agreement. Now, that's been in place for 25 years. And at the time that America signed it, people said, like Ross Perot, a name that may mean something to some of you, he said, oh, it's going to be a giant sucking sound. All of the American manufacturing jobs are going to go to Mexico. You know what? The Mexicans are too poor to buy any of our stuff anyway. Well, the reality could not have been further from the truth. American manufacturing output today is 50% higher than it was in 1993. There will be people who tell you America doesn't make anything anymore. They're either lying to you or they're ignorant, okay? And our exports, what we sell to Mexico, is up 537% over that time frame. There has been a lot of very good things that have happened as a part of NAFTA. Now, NAFTA, because it's 25 years old, the economic world has changed a lot in 25 years. It got a lot long in the tooth. It wasn't serving our needs quite like it needed to, so the administration renegotiated the North American Free Trade Agreement. It's now called the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA. It is markedly better, and Congress needs to pass it. Both the House and the Senate need to approve this international agreement before it goes into effect. And we haven't done it. We've just been kind of slow walking this thing. And the difference between NAFTA, which is a pretty good deal, and USMCA, which is a better deal, this amount of value is 176,000 new American jobs and $68 billion worth of real growth in the economy. And so what's our big priority? We need to let American manufacturers and ag producers sell into Canada and Mexico even more than they're allowed to today. Yes, ma'am.
The agreement that they're trying to pass right now is the, what is it, the NCMCA, right?
USMCA, yeah.
USMCA, yeah. That's the one that they're
Yep.
driving, okay.
We should get that done in September or October. If we don't, shame on Congress. It's a markedly better deal.
Do you think it'll be announced if it does go through?
I think, yeah, my guess is that the Speaker of the House will put it on the floor for us to vote on in October, and then it'll pass. I think the Senate will pass it shortly thereafter, and then the agreement will be in effect very quickly. It'd be really big, be a big deal. It would open up new Canadian markets for South Dakota dairy producers, wheat, wine, large types of manufacturing. It would be a good deal. Yes, ma'am.
What do you do in your daily life, like with your job?
Great question. So most Mondays, I would wake up, drop my kids off to school, catch a plane in Sioux Falls, go through Chicago, get to DC in the late afternoon. I would meet with our team. We've got a team of 8 out in DC, and then we've got a team of 8 in-state, people like Danica. We have 3 offices, Rapid City, Sioux Falls, and Aberdeen. And so I would get in to meet with our legislative team. Our legislative team is about half of the 8 people we have out in DC. And we would talk about the bills that I would be voting on that night. We vote sometimes late into the night on Monday night, sometimes only until about 8 or 9 o'clock. We would sort of talk through what the bills are, what they do, what we think our values are for them. I would then go to the floor. Now all 435 members are on the floor at the same time. We have voting cards. I didn't bring mine with you, but that would have been kind of fun to show. We vote by machine. You put your card in the machine. It says Dusty Johnson. I hit the green button or the red button. And then up on this enormous screen, my name gets either a green yes or a red no up there. So we can see how every single one of the 435 members have voted. That's a really good time to do work with other members, right? If you made us all chill out in here for 2 hours, we would have lots of side conversations, right? It's not like there's somebody really talking at the front. We're voting on bill after bill after bill after bill. There's been debate throughout the day, and they've rolled votes to the evening, so we can kind of vote on issues one after another. After that, I go back to the office. I generally work until about 10 or 11 most nights. I have a little one-room, I rent a room in a house of an older couple, about a 12-minute walk away from the Capitol. The average apartment on Capitol Hill, studio apartment, so not like a nice apartment, a little studio, is $2,500 a month. I pay about half of that living in an older couple's home. It's a little different though, right? You gotta share a kitchen, you gotta share a bathroom. She comes into my room on the weekends and she started to wash my dirty clothes.
That's nice.
Well, is it? My underwear are there. But I'm not telling her to stop. It's great. It's very nice. And then Tuesday and Wednesday, in the mornings, we would have committee hearings. I'm in the Education Committee and the Agriculture Committee. And then in the afternoons, we'd be on the House floor again, and we'd have a vote on a series of things that we debated throughout the day. And in the evenings, I do work, again, until about 10 or 11 at night. Lots of letters to sign. Probably about 10, more often than not, I would start my walk home, and I'd grab a little supper on the way home. Thursday, we vote in the morning. I catch an afternoon flight. I get home in time for a late supper in Mitchell in the evening. Friday and Saturday, I would work in the state. So going to places like Spearfish and talking to groups like you guys. And then Sunday would generally be a down day.
At least you get one day off.
What's that?
At least you get one day off.
Yeah, right.
That's what we probably.
Oh, we got to go. Sorry. Well, let me just close with this. Really, really good questions. I work out in DC and in the state, and if there's something we can do to help you, we want to very much. call any of our offices and we'll do what we can to help. If you ever find yourself out in Washington, you got to let me know. I mean, try to call well in advance. We can try to see if we can get you a Capitol tour, a White House tour, then we can get some time for me to show you around our office. That would be a lot of fun. So,
Our
I was gonna ask you
internships.
about that, I'm glad you, I'm glad you.
Yeah, yeah.
put that in there. That's
yeah.
awesome.
So, hey, thanks for your time, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.